Something that comes up quite a lot in my games is that somebody wants to make a cold shot, especially newer players. They might want to shoot an arrow through the eye of an ogre, or they might want to hit the toenail of a dragon. Newer players, I always have to explain to them that although we play out these combat scenarios in a turn-based manner, the actual thing that is happening in world, it's all happening simultaneously, and it's one big moving thing. So if you are in the middle of a combat with a giant serpent, it's gonna be really hard with it crawling around and everything across the battlefield. It's going to be really hard to actually try to hit a toenail of said serpent. Wait, serpents don't have toenails, right? Anyway, I have tried a few different ways of handling that question, especially from newer players, and I finally landed on something that I actually like. Hi there, fellow roleplayers and game masters, my name is Mr. Tarask, and today I want to talk about cold shots, which are those attacks that players, especially newer players, want to make against a creature that are highly specific and want to do a highly specific thing with doing that. For example, they want to hit, with their axe, they want to hit the back of a kneecap in order to, I don't know, trip somebody or have them skip a turn or something super specific, which isn't in their set of abilities from their class, basically. And I've three ways of approaching it that I've tried across the many years that I've been playing D&D and other tabletop RPGs, right? And I just want to talk about three of them. The last one I just discovered is a rule from Tales of the Valiant, which is a super highly specific rule from Tales of the Valiant, which is actually called cold shots. So that is one that I actually like the most because of its pure simplicity. Now, the first way that I've tried to approach it is by ignoring the question. Not just like ignoring the person asking the question, but actually just saying like, they're like, you know, I have bow and arrow and I want to shoot him in the eye because I want him to be partially blind and have disadvantage. Or there is this creature that shoots beams out of their eye. I don't know, whatever. So they want to shoot that creature in the eyes so they cannot use that power anymore. Something like that. Now, when that question comes up, a lot of the times I just explain that in combat, in active combat, there's initiative, there's turns. It's really hard to do that. As a matter of fact, I don't allow it because it's mathematically and it's just hard, and there's a lot of override and just rules upon rules, and it kind of destroys the flow of the combat because I play a lot of like theater of the mind. And for me, theater of the mind is really important that I always like have somebody do a turn, then I do a turn, then somebody does a turn or whatever, and then I kind of like go back to what everybody did and like to try to make like one moving thing out of that. And it's really hard for players for having players do that, especially because it's one thing that keeps moving. Combat is not just like, oh, imagine yourself having a bar fight or whatever. It's in the middle of a fight of like 4 or 5 guys just bounding at each other. It's really hard to like super specifically target somebody's left ear. I'm just saying something like that, right? So most of the time, players are completely and totally okay with that. If they're really not okay with that, I'm like, you know what? If you roll a 19 or a 20 on your die, you get it. You get some kind of advantage from trying to do that, but that's also not like the right way of doing it, right? Now, most, like 90%, 95% of players, after I explain that to them, to new players, they're like, yeah, it kind of makes sense that you're, that combat is a moving and flowing thing, and it doesn't make sense that you really get to specifically target something if it is not in your specific set of abilities from your class, say the rogue or the fighter or whatever. And any tabletop RPG sometimes have like these specific things, like a fighter having maneuvers to trap somebody. That's that specific thing. But outside of that, it doesn't really make sense to be able to do that in the middle of combat. But when people don't agree with that, there's actually 2 rules. There's more rules, but there's 2 rules that you can use that I've actually tried and make sense mathematically, but one just isn't fun. The first one that I tried is the official Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition one. I think it's in the Dungeon Master's Guide somewhere. It's somewhere buried deep into optional rules because you only take out those kinds of rules if you want to increase like the mechanical part of the game. If you want to have the game flow and that kind of stuff, you take those kinds of rules out. But some players just really like game mechanics and a mechanical feel to the game because they kind of want to like beat the game, beat the system, if you know what I mean. That's their kind of fun, and I'm all for that. If I'm a game master and I feel like I have a party that loves doing that, I can add mechanics to it. So what I tried is the D&D official 5th edition rule, which is basically just giving them disadvantage on their attack. Now, it makes sense when you read it, right? And you're like, okay, so you are in a battle with a big, giant, enormous serpent, which has a tail attack. And this tail attack, it has like a sharp edge to it, like the very tip of this tail has a sharp edge. Just making this shit up on the fly, right? So a player is like, I want to like chop with my great axe, chop off that little bit of the tail that does that damage and maybe decrease the damage from the tail attacks, right? Which is kind of minor effect, but it is a lasting minor effect across like the entire encounter, and so it makes sense in the player's eyes and the player head, and I absolutely think it does make sense, and it does make sense mechanically to give them disadvantage on that attack. But there's two reasons why I don't like that. I tried it and I don't like it. First reason is disadvantage is just not fun. That's it. It's not fun. Somebody rolling disadvantage and taking the lowest is just fucking sucks. And I like the idea of disadvantage. I like the mechanical idea of disadvantage. And I give out disadvantage when people have disadvantage. But I try to be somewhat scarce with handing out disadvantage. So I never really like doing that because I just don't think it's fun. Advantage, on the other hand, is the most fun thing ever. But disadvantage is just not fun because you're almost certainly sure that it's not gonna happen, especially if it's hard, right? So that is the one thing that I tried that I really didn't like because disadvantage is not fun. But also, disadvantage is on the player's side. And I don't want to give the players the feeling that what they're doing is in their hands, and I don't know how to explain it, but disadvantage is them rolling with disadvantage, and I really don't like that. They are like, oh, I need to, and you as a game master have less control about that, and you cannot fumble with the rules a little bit to make awesome stuff happen, because if you give them disadvantage and the DC is 15 and they don't make 15, it's not gonna happen. Even if you as a game master want it to happen because you think it's freaking cool. A player comes with this great idea and you're like, I want to allow it, but I don't want to give it for free. Disadvantage is not a good way of handling that to my feeling. Now, the other way that I tried doing it is, it just happened very recently in one of my online games through Discord. If you back one of my Kickstarters, you know that there's often like chances to play with me, and I'm running through Hymn of the Dragonflower, 4 Tales of the Valiant with a group of players right now. And it actually happened. Somebody got pinned down by an ice serpent tail kind of thing, and they were pinned into the ice and they couldn't move. They could swing their sword around, but they couldn't move. And so Jacko, or Yako, I still don't know how to pronounce your name, but if you're watching, thank you so much for playing with me, supporting me, and everybody who plays in that game. I'm having a shit ton of fun with Hymn of Dragonflower with you guys. It's awesome. So he was like, I want to cut off that bit of the tail that's pinning down my friend. And I was like, okay, you are on a shard of ice, and this ice is moving around. This ice serpent is making waves and crashing stuff, and I almost wanted to say, like, it ain't gonna happen because it's the middle of combat. I wanted to do that thing of ignoring the question, right? But then Yako was like, actually, Tales of the Valiant has a rule for it. And I was like, yeah, probably they do, because Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition even has a rule for it. But Tales of the Valiant being more a mechanical version of 5th edition, more focused on the mechanical side of the game, they actually have a good rule for it. And the rule is just super simple. Increase the freaking armor class. That's it. I know, I feel really, really stupid for even making this video and not like trying that before, but just increasing the armor class is extremely convenient for, again, 2 reasons. First of all, it's easy. There is no die rolling involved. Well, you need to roll the die to see if you hit, but we're gonna do that, right? But there's no like extra disadvantage or advantage, that kind of stuff. But most of all, it puts the control in the Game Master's field. The ball is in the field of the Game Master. And what I mean by that, let's say the creature has a armor class of 12. And they're hitting it, and then they're like, I want to hit the tail. And you're like, okay, but it's going to be very hard. But you don't need to tell them the armor class. You can just be like, it's going to be harder to hit him. But you can be like, in your head, oh, they're going to need to roll a 15 in order to do that. Because it's really freaking hard because of the environmental stuff that's going on and all that stuff, right? But then they roll and they're like, I rolled a 14. Right then and right there, it's still more than the original armor class, right? But it's not quite the number you had in mind. You as a game master have a split second to actually decide if you think it would be cool for this thing to happen. And because they almost made it, you can be like, that's a hit. And that's it. That's it. You have the control. You're not like giving disadvantage. I think the D&D 5th edition rule for giving out disadvantage was a really lazy way of approaching it. And the armor class thing from Tales of the Valiant by Kobold Press is just a less lazy way of approaching it. And it puts the control in the Game Master's field, which is actually the point of the entire game. You as a Game Master are allowed to have a number in mind. I don't know, you need to hit a 20 to jump over the cliff, and then they roll a 19, but you really don't want them to go into the cliff because they're the last person jumping, and if they go into the cliff, the party is going to be like super slow and they need to take them out and that kind of stuff. You're like, they roll a 19. Oh yeah, you jump over the cliff because you just barely hold on, but it was just about right. Your jump was just about right, but you need like an arm of a friend to pull you in, that kind of stuff. And you can do the same with this armor class increasing rule when somebody does a called shot. And in this occasion where we did it, it actually happened. He cut off the tail, which freed up the person who was pinned by the tail. But then I ruled that this person was now allowed to move and do everything, but they were still losing hit points because there was a freaking big ass spike in their leg, right? They were like Jim Carrey and Pat Detective. So they had to remove that. So it was the minor convenience, well, it was a major convenience of them being able to move around, but they were still losing hit points as if they were pinned. They just got their movement back. So they got to go back to the back of the battlefield and heal up there and pull the pin out and heal up there, right? So I think that is the most narratively safe way of doing it. And I, as a game master, really love having that narrative power, and increasing the armor class actually enables me to do that. And that's it. That's me rambling for 12 minutes about a stupid rule that I added to my games. Increasing the armor class if somebody wants to make a cold shot, and then giving them a minor convenience because they made that cold shot. Basically putting the power of storytelling, the narrative power, into the game master's hands, which is always great because you can help out the party just a little bit here and there without them knowing, and them still feeling heroic. Now, I really want to know how you handle it, because I am open to new ideas. I've also tried, by the way, increasing the... I also tried putting a difficulty class, like a check to it, which is really stupid because it adds more rolls and more math. But I was like, oh, you want to hit the eye? Please first roll me a sleight of hand check or something like that. I don't know. Or roll me a sleight of hand check. If you make that check and then hit with your attack, you can, which is stupid, really, really stupid. Yeah, also, really important, you might have missed me because I've been doing less videos. That's because I am now working self-employed as a contractor, as a car mechanic in a nearby garage. That is how I'm spending my days now, and I'm doing this channel a little bit more on the side. It's still like my main gig, kind of, but it is also just a little less videos, but I want to focus more on the videos that I really, really want to do. And just talking about rules and the way I play the game is just something that really, 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 really fires me up and excites me. Until next video, bye-bye.